This video is on the UV method, So the UV method is just one of the methods that can help you find the optimal solution. If you haven't used the stepping stone method, you can use the UV method. So the UV method, of course, will kick in after you have you've solved your initial feasible solution. So as you know, the initial feasible solution comes from either using the northwest corner method, the least cost method, and last but not the least, VAM. So it's like after you've used any one of these formulas to get your initial basic feasible solution, thereafter now you now use either stepping stone method or the UV method to calculate the optimal solution. So in this video, our focus is on the UV method. So suppose now you have this as your initial feasible solution. This box has occurred as your initial feasible solution with the following cost allocations and their various units. So you have like a 6 there, 8, you also have 10, the next one you have 7, the other one 11, the other one 11, the other one you have 4, the other one you have 5, and the other one you have 12. Let's just put in those units that came out in that initial feasible solution. So the 150 there, another 150. We had a 25. We had a 175. Then we had a 100 there. So this is like your initial feasible solution, right? So now you've been asked to use maybe the UV method to find the optimal solution. How do you go about this? So the way it is that you had certain values this side, right? U1, U2, this was like maybe the original question had these figures already, right? U1, U2, U3. Then on the very top, I'll have to adjust my box a bit so that you can be seeing what I mean by on the top what was there. Sorry for that. Just realized I'll have to reduce my box height a bit. Okay, let me just try to reduce that so that at least like everything can fit. So that was the box for 10, the box for 8, and the box for 6. So you had those values there, U1, U2, U3, and then on top we had like V1, V2, V3. So this is what we call the UV method, because like on your, on your rows we have U, then in the columns we have V. That's where the method comes from, U and V. So now, how do we go about this? So first of all, you have to find the actual values of U1, U2, U3, V1, V2, and V3. So the way you're going to find the values of all those things I've just listed up is by first of all focusing on the box that has an allocation of units. We focus on the box that has what? An allocation of units. That is our prime focus first. These are the only boxes that will give us the values that we need of the U1, U2, U3, V1, V2, V3. So let's get started and start finding the values. So what we usually do is that we assume U1 is equal to 0. That's the only way this process can work out very well. You always assume that your U1 value is equal to 0. Then after, it will help you find, of course, one of the V values. So like we said, we are first of all focusing on the boxes which have an allocation of units. So what do we mean by that? There are those boxes which have like a certain cost in the in like a small box, and then there's a certain amount which is also featuring in that box. That amount which is featuring is what we call the units. That's what we mean by the boxes with units in them allocated. So we said we always assume that U1 is what? Is 0. So if we go in the line of U1, in which of the v values which of the v values is corresponding with u1 and as an allocated box? Definitely it's v3, right? So v3, if u1 is 0, what is v3? Well, the formula we use is u plus v should always be equal to what? The cost that is allocated in that box. This is the formula we work with to get those values. The u plus the given v value should be equal to the cost allocated in that box. So now, looking at this scenario, we've just started with u1. We said we always assume that u1 is 0. And we said which v value is corresponding with u1 and is falling in a box that is allocated. It's v3, definitely. So what is v3 given that formula below? So it's like if your u1 is 0 plus your v3, which you don't know, equal to c. C we said is like the cost of that box you're looking at. If you look at the cost of that box, it's 10. The box in question is 10 because that's the one which is in the same line as u1 and v3. So we look at the cost, which is 10. So it's like 0 plus v3 is equal to 10. When you change the subject of the formula, you find that your v3 is equal to 10. And you have found the two values already. So you are now left to find u2, u3, v1 and v2. They need to be found. So what you can do is that, okay, our focus quite right is on the boxes which are allocated. So if you got the next row, that is row 2, you find that there are two boxes which are allocated. So if you look closely, the box that will really help you get the u2 value is the box that falls in the column of v3. Why do I go for that one? Is because we know that v3 has now a value, and that box that corresponds with v3 and u2 can definitely give you the value for u2. So what I actually mean is this. It's like you have your u2 there, which we now need to like calculate for. So it will be like, we know this is the general formula, u plus v is equal to a cost allocated in that box in question. So this time around we're looking for u2, and we said the only way you would get u2 is by looking at that box which corresponds in the column of v3 and is in the row of u2. That is the only way you would get it, because our prime focus to get the u values and the v values is by focusing on the boxes that are allocated. So if you follow that, you find that v3 has already been found up. If you rewind, we found it as 10. And now if we follow this formula, right, it's like u2 we don't know plus v3 we know, which is 10, is equal to what is the cost in that box which corresponds with v3 and u2? It's that box which has a cost of 11. So if you change the substitute of the formula, you'll find that your u2 value is equal to 1. So just like that, you're easily finding those values, like just by first of all focusing on the boxes which are allocated and working around with the values that you have, and that general formula of u plus v is equal to the cost. That's the formula we use. Next, which other values have not been found? u3 has not been found, v1 and v2 have not been found. So let's do that and find them. So you have your u1 and your u2 already. u2 can actually help you find v1. Why do I say so? u2 is known now, and there is a box that is allocated and corresponds with v1. So that is why I'm saying u2 is very key to finding v1, because our focus is on, first of all, the boxes that are allocated, and once we pick that box out, we check which two of those variables are corresponding with that box, which in this case is u2 and v1. So as I said, v1 can be found by the help of u2. So of course our general formula is u plus v, right, is equal to the costs. What is the cost in that column which corresponds with v1 and u2? The cost in there is actually 7. So let me also just rewrite it like I've been doing here on the side. We said our cost there is 7 in that box we are focusing on. What is the u2 value in this case? because it says u plus v, so it can be any u value. So I'm just stating the general formula, which is u plus v is equal to the cost. So in this case, our u value is the u2, which we're focusing on, which are the value of 1, plus v. The v in question is now v1. We don't know v1. That's the one we're looking for. So you change the subject of the formula, you find that your v1 should be equal to what? 6. So just like that, we are getting the figures, right? You should even be taking notes. Those that you find, you even take notes. So we have u1, we have found u2, we have found v1 just now. We have also found what? v3. What is left? v2 and u3 are left. How do we get that value? So u3 can easily also be found with the help of v1. Again, why do I say that? Our focus is on boxes which are allocated. So if you notice, there's a box that is allocated which falls in the line of u3 and in the column of v1. So if you look at that box that is allocated, it has a cost value of 4, the one which corresponds with u3 and v1. v1 is now known. We've just found it. It's got a value of 6, and now that can also help us to find u3. Of course, again, the general formula is u plus v minus cost. So as we said, u, it can be either any of the u's, u1, u2, u3, the one that you're trying to find, then of course plus v. V is of course v, any v1, v2, v3, and then that whatever v value that you select as usual should be equal to the cost of the box in question. So our box in question is this one with a cost of 4, because the one which corresponds with u3 and v1. So yet again, we write the general formula, u plus v is equal to cost. So let me just write the cost, which is 4. How about the u value? We don't know, which is u3 in this question. We don't know, and we need to find that. How about, we said which v value will help us find u3? We said v1, because that's the one which just corresponds with it. So v1 is known. We just found it. If you rewind, we found that the value was 6. Change the subject of the formula, you'll find that your u3 is actually negative 2. That's the answer. So you also found you at u3 negative 2. So we are recording, by the way. Do not forget to record, because you might end up forgetting something crucial. So whatever value you find, you record. We are finally left with only one, which is the value of v2. v2 is not yet known. So how do we get v2? Of course, our focus is what? On boxes that are allocated. v2 corresponds with that box which is allocated in the line of u3. So u3 is now known, and definitely it will help us find v2. The general formula once again is u plus v is equal to c. In this case, which u value are we talking about? u3, because it's the one that will help us find v2. Plus what? We said plus v in the general formula. V, which v is in question here? v2. You substitute v2. So let me even be showing what I'm talking about. So we said u3 definitely will help us calculate. So the u3 is known now. We can put a figure, minus 2. The answer was negative 2, which it gave us. Then now we said plus what? We don't know v2, but u3 will help us, because it's the one which is only corresponding with an allocated box that is in the line of v2 and u3. Thereafter equal to what? Cost. What cost value is there in that box which is corresponding with v2 and u3? We have a cost value of actually 5. So therefore, if you substitute, change the subject of the formula there, you find that your v2 value will be, if you say that, it will be 7 actually. So it's like your negative crosses the equal sign now. So it will be like 5 plus 2. Your v2 value should be 7, unless otherwise, but it should be 7. Thereafter, you have gotten all your desired values, your u1, your u2, your u3, your u, and so your u1, your u2, your u3, your v1, v2, v3. You've gotten the values. Take note of them and keep them somewhere on your rough paper. Just come and use now. So now you have done that work. Now the next job is start testing out by focusing on only the unallocated cells. So now we are starting to test out to now see if this box is optimal or not. So there was a 6, there was an 8, there was a 10, there was a 7, 7, 11, 11. The next one is 4, 5, and 12. Okay, so we want to now test out this solution. The same one. I'm just repeating the same box, by the way. I'm not changing the question. I just erased something there so that I could clean it up. Okay, remember you still have your U1 this side, your U2, your U3. Of course, they've got now values. Definitely they have values, but we just want to rewrite the whole question the way it was. So you have those values and repeat whatever they had in their allocations. There was a 150 here, there was a 25 here, there was a 150 here, and there was a 100 there. Here there is a 175. So now we want to now start testing out if this solution is optimal after getting those values of u1, u2. That's the first step. Once you get those values, now you test out if it's optimal or not. So how do you test out? You test out by focusing now on the cells that do not have any allocation and make a list of them below. The cells that do not have an allocation. So if you look at the cells which do not have any allocation, which is like we have not attached any number of units to them, in short. So what you're going to do is that there's the first cell there which I've just seen, the very first cell, which has a cost of 6. That one is unallocated. So it's your first cell, you identify it and you pick it out. So you write this cell. How do you record this stuff now? Once you pick a cell, you record that, okay, this cell which is unallocated is in what position? Let's just say C for cell 1, 1. What do I mean by cell 1, 1? Meaning the cell that is in row 1, column 1. So that's how you show that you've picked it out or you've identified it, by writing it in this way. The next cell which is unallocated there is the one with a cost of 8. It's in cell what? It's in row what? It's in row 2. Sorry, it's in row 1, column 2. So you just write them in terms of the position is determined by that row and column basis. Yeah. The next cell which is unallocated is the one in row 2. You go to row 2 with a cost of 11. It has a cost of 11 and it is also unallocated. How do you write its position? It's in row 2. And then what column? Column 2. So it's just like row by column, in short. The next cell which is unallocated is that cell which is written with a cost of 12 and is in row 3, column 3. You're done. You've listed out everything. So now, like, what is the way forward here now? So what you're going to do now is that you want to find what they call penalties, cost penalties, as of these unallocated boxes. Cost penalties, how will you get them? So these cost penalties, what you're going to do now is that if you go to the first one you've just picked up, so we have 4 cells which were unallocated. So let's begin with the very first one. How do we get the cost penalty of this unallocated cell as we test for this being optimal? So if we look at the first cell, we want to check it out if it's optimal, or if what figure it will give us. So we'll go there and draw and identify the u1 value and the v value which correspond with this box in question. So if you look at the first box, which is in row 1, column 1, and having a cost of 6, right? The formula that we're going to use to find the possible outcome of value that this one will produce is I'm writing the formula on your left hand side. Just look at the left hand side of your screen. U plus V minus C. That's the formula we use. So the formula to we use when testing out whether a certain question given or a certain initial feasible solution has been given, like in this one, to test whether it's optimal. We use that formula of u plus v minus c of the unallocated boxes that you have just highlighted, which were 4 of them. So it's like u plus v minus c. So if you look at this unallocated box, what was its u value? It was u1, right? What about its v value? v1. You now know u1, you already calculated, right? So it's like you just substitute. u1 is 0, v1 is 6. So it will be like 0 plus 6 minus c. Costs. What is the cost in that box which you're talking about right now, which is the first unallocated cell? It has a cost of 6. So it will be like 0 plus 6 minus 6, giving you 0. So that's what you allocate there. On C11, you put the answer, which is 0, because like you're testing out for optimality. Usually how you know that the solution is optimal using UV method is when all the answers that we'll find here, if they are all negatives, actually, if they are all negatives, then you're done. It's optimal. That's how you know in UV method. All negatives come out, then it's optimal. So we got the next unallocated box, which is C12, meaning the cell in row 1, column 2, which is the one with the cost of 8. You repeat the same method, u plus v minus c. What is the u value with this box of 8 having a cost of 8? It's still u1, right? What about the v value in that cost of 8? It's v2. So it's like you have your u1, which is 0. So it's like 0 plus, what is v2 value? If you check your answers, if you rewind, we found the v2 value of this one was supposed to be, it's 1. Let me just counter check with my answers as well quickly. So v2 actually was 7. Just counter checked. I've just counter checked. It was 7. So it's like 0 plus 7. While in that box it's having a cost of 8. Then minus the cost in that box, which we just said is 8. So 0 plus 7 minus 8 gives you what answer? Minus 1. That's the answer you record here on C12, minus 1. Next box is the box which is in row 2, column 2. Our focus now in testing for optimality is just those which are unallocated. So we're on C22, which is the box in row 2, column 2, which is having a cost of 11. Same thing, do the u plus v minus c again. You find that when you say u, the u value in that line is u2, and the v value that corresponds with that box with the cost of 11 is the v2 value, again repeating itself. So what was the value for u2? We had found that the value for u2 was 1, so it's like 1 plus v2 there. V2 is 7. 1 plus 7 is what? 8. 8 minus the cost. What cost is in that box? 11. 8 minus 11, negative 3. And you record here, just like that. Next, C33. C33, what you're going to do is that you check. C33 is in row 3, column 3. What u and v values correspond with that box, which are the cost of 12, by the way? It's u3 and v3. So get their values and substitute in that u plus v minus c formula, which we are working with to test for optimality. So the u3 as the one we're working with of the box in C33 is as follows. u3, what did we find for u3? u3 gave us a value of negative 2. So it's like negative 2 plus, what is the v3 value? v3 was 10. So it's like negative 2 plus 10, which gives you positive 8, right? Positive 8 minus the cost. What cost value is in that box? 12. Positive 8 minus 12, giving you negative 4. What was the basis? How do you know that the solution is optimal using UV method? If all the answers that you get are negatives, that's how you know that what? You have reached optimality. 0 or negative, then you're safe. And from the looks of it, this solution was optimal just by the first try, as you have seen. So what you just do is that you just say, therefore, When you're done, therefore you now just take whatever this box came with, you just erase everything in your sides here, you erase that stuff. Then you look at the box which is left on the screen now. What have you been left with? Therefore you've been left with those boxes which were allocated with certain units, right? Those are the ones we pick when finding now the overall costs. So it's like we had the box which has the 150, right, by 10. So it's like we're now finding the overall cost. The 150 are like the units, the 10 is like a cost, and then you like multiply it by that to find like the overall cost. So your focus is picking boxes which have allocations and multiplying them by their respective costs. Then you sum up everything. That's how you get the total cost of the optimal solution. So that's how you test that it's optimal. And once it's optimal, you go ahead and do what I've just told you, is by where you focus on the boxes that are allocated and get your total costs. That's it on the UV method.